Don't think twice about what you're going to say next and how it might affect them. Why? Free. Until it's free no more. And then you regret. And then you repent. Now it's time to be remorseful. Don't be that guy. Don't be that person. Appreciate what you have. Appreciate what you have, not because that's so good and you want to be back in samsara to go through that again and again and again. But appreciate what you have, because these are all things that a lot of people in this world don't have. A lot of time people actually complain about what they don't have, don't they? Is that what people like to do a lot? Complain about what they don't have? Not thinking about what they do have? Doesn't everyone you come across complain about the economy? About the weather? About politics? Yes. Everyone's complaining. Because they don't realize what they have. They don't realize that there are a lot of other countries where they couldn't get out and walk on the street and be guaranteed that they'd come back home alive. They don't realize that. They've forgotten all that. People complain about the police, about the armed forces. Oh, it shouldn't be like this, they should be like that. They're so corrupt. People don't realize that the reason that you can go to bed at night and not worry about what's going to happen is because there's the armed forces out there who keep guard, who guard our nation with their life. People don't realize that. So people complain. People just moan. People complain about the economy. This is always pointing the finger outwards. That's what it is, time and time again. Pointing the finger outwards. The problem's not with me, the problem's out there, so fix yourself. A lot of people complain about their schools. A lot of young children complain about their schools. My school is not a good school. My teachers, they're useless. They're not even in class half the time. Chances are your teacher's not in class half the time because you are not in class half the time. Who's the teacher going to come and teach? Desks and chairs? Or the blackboard? Sometimes you're there in person, but you're not there in mind. So what's the teacher going to come and do in class? You know the old saying? The day you become a good student, a teacher appears. You don't have to do anything. The teacher appears. The day you learn to become a good student, the teacher will just appear. Out of nowhere, a teacher will appear. So stop complaining. Stop pointing the finger outwards. Point your finger inwards. Look at what you can do to be a better person. Look at what you can do for your country, for yourself, for your neighbor, for your husband, for your wife, for your children, for your mother, for your father. See what you can do. Expect little. Give a lot. Because ultimately, what you get is what you give. So if you get little, what's the reason? You're giving very little. Who said so? The Buddha said so. So don't be someone who gives very little and expects the world. Don't be like that. Don't ask what your country can do for you, right? What should you ask? What can I do for my country? We need to talk about these things from time to time as well, not just anicca dukkha anatta. Because this is what's going to give you a good background, a good foundation. If you don't realize the value of things you have, And again I say, this is not value in terms of, hey, lovely, I just want to keep coming back in samsara. This is the best husband I've ever had. I want to keep coming back into samsara for you, my darling. That's not what we're talking about. Because that is the most foolish decision that anyone can ever make. Remember what we talked about last week? No one loves you, they just love themselves. But if you keep complaining, then what's going to happen is, you're going to lose the very things that are currently helping you to get to where you want to go. And then you're going to be left with nothing. You can't complain the economy because that's all you've got. How can you complain about the sun and the rain and the wind? Isn't that all you've got? Take away the sun, take away the rain, take away the wind, take away the ground beneath your feet. Now what have you got? Nothing. So what are you complaining about? You're complaining about the very things that you've got. This is all you've got. You're complaining about your mother, you're complaining about your father. Well, take them away. Now what are you left with? Nobody. So don't be a complainer. Be someone who's grateful for what you have, expect little, and give as much as you possibly can. Okay. Let's come back to the Dhamma, Anicca Dukkha Anatta. That's what you're here to hear, right? That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to listen. You know, we've been talking about pleasure and how pleasure is what? Which of these two is pleasure? Something you can find in an object, or is it, what is it? What did we define pleasure as? Yes. Is it a characteristic of an object, or is it the outcome of a process? It's an outcome of a process. So where there is no process, you're not going to see pleasure. There has to be a process. It's not an attribute or a characteristic of an object. Show me where pleasure is in this winnowing fan. Where is it? Where's pleasure on this winnowing fan? Why can you not show pleasure? Why can you not point out pleasure in this winnowing fan? Well, you're going to have to ask, where's the process? Exactly, where is the process? There is no process that's happening here, so you can't say there is pleasure. So we are talking about a process that is a mental process, a process that runs in the mind. And what is the process? Starts with what? Attachment. As soon as you attach, now what's going on? Vexation. This pelima, right? That feeling. And then relief from vexation. The result of that process, the outcome of that process is a sensation of pleasure and nothing else. So was pleasure there before the event? Is pleasure there after the event? Is that because of the way I'm asking the question? Okay, let me put it this way. So pleasure is there before the event, isn't it? No, it's only there after the event, right? So where is pleasure then? Where does pleasure manifest? It's during the process. Simple example, headache. Before the headache, before you even begin to feel a headache, do you sense pleasure? No. Well, you should be sensing pleasure right now if you don't have a headache. Now you have a headache. Do you sense pleasure? No. You take a paracetamol and the headache is cured. So let's say it's cured at 12 o'clock. Now it's 1 o'clock. Do you sense pleasure? No. Because before the headache, it was before the event. At 1 o'clock, because the headache was cured at 12, now it's 1 o'clock, it's after the event. Or even 1 minute past 12, that's still after the event. So at neither of these 2 points are you going to sense pleasure. Pleasure is nothing other than the relief from vexation. So it's during the event that you feel this. during the event. Does that make sense? It's during the event. Let's say you've got, another good example would be, you've got a rash, let's say on your palm, and it's feeling quite itchy. You haven't started itching it yet. Pleasure? No, that's painful. You itch it, or you scratch it rather, and then after you've stopped scratching it, how do you feel now? Is that pleasure? No. But while you're scratching it, now that's pleasurable, isn't it? That's pleasurable. So it's during the process that you experience this sensation of pleasure, because it is the outcome of a process, and if once the process stops, now the outcome stops as well. This is the point you need to understand here. Because it's the outcome of a process, that experience can only be sensed while that process is still running. Because as soon as the process stops running, now you can't get an outcome from a process because there's no process running. Did you understand that? You can only experience it while the process is running. But where people fall, where people get this all wrong because of ignorance, is at that point in time where you experience pleasure, something comes from the outside world. This happens as if by coincidence. Using an example, someone says, pizza for dinner tonight. I always get heads turned when I say that. Pizza tonight for dinner, someone says. Now in your mind, you have started vexing for it, have you not? That vexation did not start before that word was uttered. Would you like pizza for dinner? Before that was said, no, you were thinking about something else. Whether it was the cricket match, or whether you were doing your homework, or just doing about whatever chores you were attending to, that pizza did not come into your mind. But the moment someone said, would you like pizza for dinner? Now that vexation has surfaced. It's not that it wasn't there. It was all submerged. Something else was taking predominance. But now, whatever else has been submerged, and this has now taken predominance. So this has now surfaced. Pizza. Now, someone brings pizza, and it's time for dinner. As you're eating this, as you're sensing the taste of pizza, or the smell of it, or the look of it, this is all you can get from pizza, right? Can you get anything else from pizza? It's got to either be the look, or sight of it, smell, taste, and touch. Does pizza have sound? No, there's no sound to pizza. But these four things you get from a pizza while you're eating it. And while you're eating it, now a process is being run. What is the process that's running right now? Relief from vexation. This is a process that's running right now. Relief from vexation is running at this point in time, and therefore you're sensing pleasure. But this is the curse. It's a real pity that this is happening at that very point in time where you're sensing pleasure. And that is, you're tasting pizza at the same time. Your tongue is picking up the taste of pizza, and you're being relieved of vexation at the same time. Because these two events are happening at the same time, ignorance tells you it's the taste of pizza that relieved me from vexation. But as we discussed last week, pleasure cannot come from the outside world. Because the moment someone says, would you like to have this? Now you start looking for it. You're seeking for it. You're searching it. When can I have it? I mean, can I go online, order it now? Where's your card? Can I order it now? Now you're searching it. Now you're looking for it. Now you just can't wait for it. It's like this search engine inside of you has just kicked off. It's going looking for it. Imagine this, to give you an analogy. You know, have you heard of metal detectors? There are machines that can detect metal, right? So imagine you've dropped something on the ground and it's something gold. Okay? Because it's in the sand, you can't see it. It's blended in with the color of the sand. Now to find this, you need a metal detector. So what you do is you go grab yourself a metal detector and you switch on this machine. Once you switch on this machine, imagine there's some kind of motor that's running inside. Whatever the mechanics of this machine is, it's now running. Because it's running, it's consuming energy, and let's say this is heating up slowly but gradually. It's heating up. So now you walk around with this metal detector until it gives you a beep. Tick, tick, tick. So metal has just been located. As soon as you find your metal that you have lost, what can you do to this machine? Switch it off. When you switch off this machine, now the machine starts to cool down. Right? Do you have to keep this machine on after you found your metal? No. The moment you find your metal, what you were looking for, you can now switch off the engine. You can switch off this machine. So what this machine that heated up previously can now cool down. That is the sensation of pleasure. It's not the metal that you found that brought you pleasure. You had been running this machine for a long period of time looking for whatever you had lost. And that was tiring on the machine. Now this machine, according to this analogy, you've got to put your mind into this machine. This machine that I talk of in this example is really your mind, because your mind is what is looking for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Constantly going looking for it. Because you're attached to it. Whatever you're attached to, you're constantly seeking, you're constantly looking for. But the moment you find what you're looking for, do you have to keep looking after that? Do you have to keep searching? No. When do you stop typing into Google? After you've found what you're looking for. Do you still keep typing in after you found what you're looking for? No. Say you want to find out the Independence Day of Sri Lanka. You type in Independence Day of Sri Lanka. And the result comes up. Do you still continue to type Independence Day of Sri Lanka? No, because you found what you were looking for. Therefore, that activity of seeking, activity of searching can come to a stop. When that activity comes to a stop, remember, this is an activity that was quite tiring. It was stressful. No one likes looking for something that they've lost. If you really enjoy looking for something you have lost, how much you spend your weekends? Losing things, absolutely. Just go to the park with your child and go, Puta, I'm going to close my eyes now. Go run and hide somewhere. And what Ami is going to do is come and keep looking for you. Let's play hide and seek. That's how you'd spend your weekends. But you don't enjoy looking for something you've lost. This is why you say when you go out, Buddha, don't let go of my hand, hold tight. Because you don't enjoy that feeling of having lost whatever you're attached to. Remember, I think last week or the week before, someone asked a question about eating cake. Why is it after you've eaten cake for a period of time, that process is no longer enjoyable? Why is cake no longer enjoyable after you've had it, had a few mouthfuls? So if you remember, the explanation that I offered you was when the mind is in vexation and when cake is being presented to the mind, remember it has to come through the brain, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I drew it out in a diagram and showed you right through the process. When you're taking in cake through your mouth, so your tongue is tasting cake and your brain is sending Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, packets of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana to your mind. Now your mind is receiving whatever it was vexing for. Right? Because it's coming constantly, now you lose value in it. Because it's just there. Every time you ask for it, it's there. Whenever you ask for it, it's there. Then the value that you give it starts to diminish. It's just like the value that you give to your family. A guy likes a girl. Okay? Think about this. Guy likes a girl. If he enjoys that feeling of attraction to the girl, what's the last thing he should do? Say again? What's the last thing he should do? If he likes the attraction that he's feeling from this girl, right? So the girl's pretty, he thinks, she's a lovely girl, I really like you. What is the last thing that this guy should do? Marry her. Why do I say that? Value goes down. Yes. Because what happens after you get married? You take the girl home, and now whenever you're vexing for that Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, all you have to do is open your eyes and she's there right in front of you. But prior to marriage, you only got to see her once a week when you went to your tuition class. Or you saw her at the party once a month when everyone got together. When there was a get-together, people met each other. Or once a year, whenever, right? Is that how often you see her? Then it's not regular. And you don't know when it might happen, when it might not happen. Right, so put this into your life examples, right? This is how the Dhamma comes true for you. You have to put this into your life and see whether this is true or not so true. Before you got married, you really enjoyed their companionship because it was very scarce. It wasn't easy to come by. You had to fight for it, you had to struggle for it. You had to play hide and seek with your parents. Didn't you? You had to wait to go online when your parents went to bed to have a conversation. To give a call, you had to wait until your parents left home. And then again you'd be on the phone just checking if someone's at the door, parents have come back home. Put the phone down again, talk to you later, I've got to go. When that was what was going on, that was quite pleasurable. A lot more pleasurable than it is now. And the reason for that is because back then when you were vexing, it was not easy to relieve yourself of that vexation. Because it wasn't easy to relieve yourself of vexation, the value you gave to that Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha and the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that came from that Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha was a lot. You gave it a lot of value. But now, all you have to do is open your eyes and she's there in front of you. This is why I say, if a girl or a guy really likes the look of somebody else or finds another person attractive, the last thing they ought to do is get married. That's the last thing they ought to do. Because the moment you do that, now value starts to diminish. For as long as these two don't get married, they will live happily ever after. When's the happiest day of a man and a woman? Their wedding day. That's the happiest they'll be in their lives. From that day forwards. Well, you know. You must have lived in the same world that I did. So you know. Put this into your, it sounds funny, but there's a deep Dhamma that we need to understand from this. There's a very profound doctrine that we need to understand from this. Why is that the case? Why does it happen like that? Like I said, Buddhism is not a study about the outside world. Honestly, it's a study about yourself. So this is a time when we have to ask ourselves, why is my mind like that? Before I got married, when I got to see my wife or my wife who was to be my wife, my fiancée, when I only got to see her once a week, those moments were so precious to me. I delighted those moments. I waited, I counted the days and hours and minutes waiting for that moment to come. But now, it's not so much. Why is that? So, study about yourself. This is self-study. Why is that? Because what's happening now is, whatever Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana you're vexing for, you're being relieved of that constantly. Because it's there right in front of you. No scarcity. Yes, it's supply and demand, isn't it? So to get married to them is a false economy. Because now there's greater demand, so rather more supply, less demand. So one day when your child comes and says, Ammi, I've seen this girl, I really like her. What should the mother say? Puta, whatever you do, don't get married. Because until then, you will live happily ever after. This is the truth. Now you know why. Because otherwise, people have these problems in their lives. My goodness, number of times and couples come into the monastery and they talk about how living with their spouses become, hell on earth. But that's not how they used to be. That's not how they used to be. But why is it now? They come and ask me. I'm not an expert on marriage, but I know a thing or two about how the mind works because of the Buddha's teaching. So when you apply the principles of the Dhamma into that situation, ticks all the boxes. Yep, time and time again. An example that came to mind, just to help better understand that pleasure is relief from vexation, on one of my recent meditation practices, I'll share with you. Imagine there's a drum. Okay, a drum. So a drum it's a percussion instrument, right? Yes. So you have a drum. A guy sees a drum, but he's never seen one ever in his life before. So he sees this object. He doesn't know it's a drum. He sees this object and he wonders, what is this object? Now, of course, he's curious, like the rest of us. So what he does is he walks up to this instrument, which we know is a drum, but this guy doesn't, because he's never seen one ever in his life before. So he walks up to this instrument, or this object, and what he does is he bangs it with his hand. He just goes bang. Now I say bang because that's the noise that comes when you hit the drum, but what he does is he just hits the surface, or what do you call it on a drum? The skin? Yeah, the skin of the drum. So you hit the diaphragm or the skin or whatever you want to call it, the drum basically, where you're supposed to hit it. And then that produces a sound. Right? As any drum would. So when a sound is produced, this guy hears that sound and he thinks, that's a lovely sound that's just come from that. That's just come. That's all he knows. So he hits it again. And again he hears that sound. And again he thinks, that's a lovely sound. So he hits it a third time. It's a lovely sound. This guy doesn't realize that what he's hitting is a drum. And it's the nature of a drum, being a percussion instrument, which has air trapped within it, to vibrate, and therefore once it's hit, to generate a sound. He doesn't realize that this is a drum and that is how a drum works. What he thinks is, I hit the drum, I heard a noise, ooh, wow, what you're capable of. What's he pleased with now? His palm, his hand. He thinks, I never knew you could do that. So he hits it again. And again he hears that sound. Again he thinks, this is marvelous. I never knew that you could do such amazing things. He doesn't realize that it's a drum that he has just hit. And no matter what you hit the drum with, you're going to get a sound and it's going to sound pretty much the same. He thinks that it's the hand that made the noise. So what he's going to do next? He's going to wonder, perhaps there are other things that can also bring me that sound. Then he goes walking and he finds a stick. He brings the stick and starts hitting the drum with the stick again. This time around again he hears that noise. Oh, just like my hand, this stick is also quite a marvelous thing. It's quite magical how this stick can bring such lovely sounds. Then he goes looking again for other things that can make this sound. He goes all over the world looking for things that can generate this sound, but not realizing that it's the drum that's doing all the hard work. He thinks it's whatever that object is that hit the drum that is generating this sound that he finds quite pleasurable. The way our mind works, and through ignorance, the decision that we come to is pretty